Good morning, and this is day 26 of our 30-day challenge. Today, I want to talk about why we even started this, just as a reminder. And the 30-day challenge was about embodying the person who already lives in the outcome that we're looking for. And so if your goal was to, let's say, have a business that has worldwide reach, how does that person behave? How does that person act? And I've been talking to a few of you guys throughout the week, throughout the days, and one of our biggest challenges is that consistency. Today, I want to talk about self-care, self-respect, and self-trust. Maybe we should break these down into 3 separate days. So maybe today we can talk about self-care, and tomorrow we'll talk about self-respect. And self-care, for me, is very important because we spend so much time caring about material possessions. Most people will wash their cars, their shoes. They take so much pride in keeping those things clean. And then we neglect our inner being, our bodies, our temples, our souls, our spirits. So self-care is really an intentional act of maintaining our physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being and bandwidth. And it includes everything that we can think of, from sleep, from eating, from rest, even therapy. And it protects us from things like overworking, stress. It even protects us from doing too much. And at its very best, when we do self-care the right way, it prevents us from destroying ourselves, from collapse. And on the other side, when self-care is a little excessive, it becomes self-indulgence. It becomes vanity. And that is, it can also lead to destruction. And sometimes we see that, we see that self-care when we're supposed to be taking a rest. It turns into the doom scrolling. It turns into the avoidance of doing something. And I hear people say, oh, I'm just treating myself. But there has to be a limit. There has to be a boundary. And I think that when we actually care about ourselves, it's the difference between living in success and being in happiness, being in a happy state and being at peace, and attaining all the things we want, but not having the vessel to do it in. And so how do we create that balance of self-care? And the biggest thing is awareness. Awareness of who you are, what you're carrying around. In the Bible, it's written that our body is a temple. And sometimes we forget to treat our body as that temple. What are we putting in our body? Some of us are putting poison every day in our body and don't even stop to realize it. I think comfort can support a growth-oriented life, but when comfort becomes excessive, it erodes it. And so that's why even our self-care requires discipline. You need discipline to say, I've watched enough Netflix today. I've eaten enough desserts. Now it's time for the vegetables. I have to go to bed instead of chasing that dopamine. And if we're just purely focused on the comfort, it leads us to almost a hedonistic life where we need more comfort to feel the same level of quote unquote care. The thing that I want to leave you guys with is there is no growth that's going to occur without discomfort, but self-care is necessary in that process. And if not, it's going to lead to destruction. So what are some ways that you care for yourself? What are some ways that you indulge and you balance things out? We see that in the Bible, there was 6 days of work, 1 day of rest. And that 1 day of rest is so intentional because the creator, the programmer, the designer of this whole thing knew that we need to recharge. We need to get back. We need that 1 day to sort of refresh ourselves. And the same principle applies to our relationships, how we care for others. And so today, on our day 26, I want to encourage you, just write down one way that you can intentionally care for yourself every day, every week, every month. For me, it's meditation every day. It's intentional eating every day. Once a week, it's re-energizing, unplugging, reading that book. That's how I indulge in my self-care. And everyone has their own way, but it should be a way that reconnects you to the essence of who you are. So tomorrow we're going to talk about self-respect or maybe self-trust.